The Superstar Shakeup is an event that keeps our enthusiasm after WrestleMania going, and it allows us the tension and excitement of wondering where our favourites or least favourite superstars go between the brands. The people on the thumbnail of this video weren't drafted, so who the hell was? And was it a detriment or benefit to their brand? Well, the only one way to find out whether Raw and SmackDown managed to deliver on this premise and create engaging television this week is to sink my teeth in and analyse the hell out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling Rant. We kick things off with Monday Night Raw in the obvious quest to not only find out which brand won the draft overall, but which one produced the more entertaining broadcast. And you might be aware that that is very easy to tell. But let's kick off with the red brand's Superstar Shakeup positive, shall we? Who did they get that was really exciting? Well, it was surprisingly underwhelming in what their best pick was at first, as Dolph Ziggler came over from SmackDown, and you would expect that to be an underwhelming thing, considering his booking in the last year has been stop-start, inconsistent, and wholly inappropriate, because seriously, how do you go from winning the US title, to then dropping it, to then returning in the Rumble, and then fighting in the Undisputed Giant Memorial Battle Royal, despite the fact that you legitimately don't want to do any of that? Well, he decided to come out there, and he was interrupted by Titus Worldwide, who wanted to recruit him. And of course, he then said, well, you know what, I was about to say that things are going to change around here, and the reason behind that is I haven't come alone, because he came with Drew McIntyre of NXT in tow, and oh my god, that was a holy shit chant worth warranting, because I didn't see it coming, and so many people didn't either. On top of that, you also have the amazing combination of the Zigzag and Claymore combo. Oh my god, that was awesome. Now, I understand that McIntyre and Ziggler are not going to be tag division regulars yet at this point. There could be some singles runs for either man here, which could balance off nicely. They have a lot of directions to go into. And Ziggler, with McIntyre in tow, reminds many of Shawn Michaels and Diesel circa 1994. That's pretty awesome. Even I can't admit that that's a bad thing. The fact is, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with both of these men going forward, and that's a really good thing, to say the least. Following on from that, we also got the unexpected arrival of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Now, of course, they were considered free agents in a storyline perspective, as Stephanie McMahon screwed over Kurt Angle by getting them on board, especially considering Ronda Rousey broke her arm last week. It makes valid sense, it narratively works out, and I have to say, once again, the delight of seeing Sami Zayn as a heel be an absolute dick made my week. Seriously, I could watch Sami Zayn as a heel all day long. And this proved it thusly, because while Kevin Owens is quite fantastic as a heel, just to see Sami Zayn having the time of his life doing it just makes it all better. On top of that, they also got Bobby Roode. Now, I'm hoping they turn him heel, because he needs that injection of character. Unfortunately, they don't have many baby faces on Raw currently, at least in the mid-card title scene, where I believe Bobby Roode will be for a while, so they kind of need him to be babyface, which I have to admit is a bad idea, but I like the idea of Bobby Roode being on this show, because if he's given time to grow and showcase himself, then maybe good things will come from it. I don't know at this point, but I feel it was the right decision. He'd fought pretty much everybody in the mid-card on SmackDown, and he'd also fought in the main event talent on SmackDown as well, so I feel it was a good reason to get him on the red brand and show him with some new opponents. Even though Mojo Rawley and Jinder Mahal are both here on Raw as well, so that means effectively he's facing people he's already faced. Not a good idea, I would say. Although him versus Seth Rollins and Finn Balor would be very, very interesting. The other big news that came from Raw that I really, really liked was, of course, the fact that Miz was drafted to SmackDown on this show. I know, usually you'd have to wait till SmackDown to hear this kind of news, but instead we got it on Raw as Daniel Bryan talked to Shane McMahon and Paige, requested that they draft The Miz over, and they did. Oh boy, and that was a nice swerve in that entire segment actually. That I thought, oh, they got one over on Kurt. Kurt looks weak. Oh no, he just sent The Miz a curveball. Not only that, The Miz Taraj aren't going with him, and the anger in Miz's face and voice, oh, perfection. Not to mention, we get Daniel Bryan versus The Miz at some point in the future. Finally, the payoff to all of that annoyance over the last 2 years gets it. I love it. And this is fantastic. And just the way they executed this, swerving us out of nowhere once Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were signed. Oh, that was just brilliant. It was the segment for the whole evening outside of McIntyre's re-debut, which is lovely. The thing is, though, on top of that, we also got a random surprise, because I already mentioned Jinder Mahal is on Raw, and that's not a bad thing. The guy will hopefully be a benefit to Raw's mid-card, in giving them a guy who people actually hate, so when people beat him, it'll get cheers from pretty much everyone. I don't know who they boo between Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal, but that should be very fun. The fact of the matter is, he brought the US title with him, and after a cringy segment with Kurt Angle at NoFreakinWay.com was highlighted, Jeff Hardy came out and then won the title in what was a very good match. Jeff highlighted his in-ring offense well, Mahal looked competent as well, and it sounds like a bad thing when I say the word competent in the word of a wrestler, but considering his moveset is usually surprisingly anticlimactic when going up against other wrestlers, it worked surprisingly well contrasting with Jeff Hardy's risk-taking high-flying offense. I quite enjoyed it. It was a way that really hyped me up for the rest of the evening, and that's a positive I really can say. And the fact is, to say that Jinder Mahal put in a decent performance on his Raw re-debut is a good thing. Not to mention, I have to point this out, Heath Slater, Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal are all on the same brand. Get that 3MB reunion, baby! And everybody is going to be happy. Actually, it would be kind of funny if they end up winning singles championships and they're just going to look at each other going, what the hell happened to all of us? That would be lovely, wouldn't it? But Heath Slater isn't going to catch a break, because he never does, even though he has kids. Here are the honourable mentions from Raw, because they're the 3 big moments along with the Superstar Shakeup that really caught my eye. Some other things that need some attention, the Miz Taraj, of course I already mentioned, are going to be staying on Monday Night Raw, split with the Miz, because they realised, hold on a second, this is a good chance for us, and it also means that the Raw Tag Division, which has been gutted, I may add, we'll get to that later, has another team that people can get behind, hopefully, and it's a good face team to have as well. Let's hope they manage to make something good from that, and the moment just watching Miz's face as they walked away, realising, oh good lord, he has to face Braun Strowman in the ring in that 10-man tag, which was also a great match, but that moment was better than the entire contest, and that's all I can really say about that. Ronda Rousey's segment with Absolution and Natalya was lovely because it showed Natalya as sympathetic. Good lord, never thought I'd say that, but there we go, that's a thing that's happened. Ronda Rousey and Natalya is a program we're going to see in the future. It highlighted the Jekyll and Hyde side of the character of Ronda Rousey, how she can go from a concerned, normal human being to an ass-kicking machine at the snap of a finger. She's Festus with a leather jacket, and she looks a darn sight better than Luke Gallows did back then, so I can't really complain there either. And of course, one thing that I have to mention is a good thing. After Jinder Mahal lost the US Championship, he complained backstage, and then No Way Jose came out of nowhere with music and dancers in tow, telling Mahal to just cheer up and be happy. Now, I hate No Way Jose. I hate the gimmick, I hate the music, but the one thing I can say is the man behind it all, Jose himself, is at least likeable. He's cheerful, he's happy. He doesn't come across as much of a prick as Adam Rose did, so he is actually going to be endearing to the audience. I'm looking forward to seeing how they put up in the ring together, because it could be quite fun, but just the moment, watching the contrast, and then he just takes Renee Young to dance with him. I can't complain, it was really lovely, and it made me realise that if No Way Jose is used sparingly for comedic moments and then utilised as a great in-ring talent for matches when needed, it could be a surprise work. It could be good. It could be. We're going to have to wait and see over the course of the next few months to see whether that is indeed the thing, but there we go. Not to mention the greatest Royal Rumble in Jeddah, I am hoping No Way Jose makes an entrance, decides to do a conga line around the ring, and for some bizarre reason the wrestlers get out of the ring and join him, because that is the kind of thing a house show pay-per-view needs. Now, what are the bad things that this show had? Well, there are some negatives from the Superstar Shakeup, and all but one of them were actually untelevised. The biggest of the lot was Chad Gable. Now, I'm a huge fan of Chad Gable, and I was hoping, with the wrestlers leaving SmackDown, he'd be in a position, along with Shelton Benjamin, to split from each other, and at least in an acrimonious sense, highlight a face and a heel, and then go on to have a good feud against each other, followed by singles title runs apiece. That's what I was hoping for, but Chad Gable should have been announced on the main show, in my opinion, and well, there we go. It's just a thing, and I'm annoyed. I hope they utilise Chad Gable, because he shouldn't be a spoke on the wheel. He's got the best mic work he could have, he's got the in-ring work to boot, and I just really enjoy him. I just don't want him to be lost in the shuffle. Sure, he has to feud with Jason Jordan once he comes back from neck injuries, but if that's all he's there to do, then what's the point of utilising such a brilliant talent? Let's hope he can be used in the mid-card as the babyface I was mentioning when Bobby Roode was there. So maybe if Chad Gable wins the IC title at some point, maybe he can win it, and then end up seeing Bobby Roode as a heel. Could be really nice contrasts there. Who knows? But then, of course, we have to look at, well, the mid-card again, and look at Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder, because why are you moving both of those together? If you're meant to be building Mojo up, surely separating him from Zack Ryder in the draft was the best thing, right? I mean, they're doing it for the Hardys, spoiler alert, I'll get to that in a bit, but this is ridiculous, right? Is it? Oh, Jesus, I just find it annoying. At least Zack gets a chance in the lower mid-card to do something more, I hope, but we know WWE loves Mojo Rawley right now, and he's probably going to go on to something good. I hope he does something more than just feuding with Zack again, because you can't just take something that was a kind of a flop on SmackDown, stick it on the A show with slightly different writing, and think it's going to turn out as good as you think it is in your head. It's not going to work, but it's up to WWE to prove me wrong on that. And finally, I've already mentioned her once here, Natalya. Predominantly because I don't really care about Natalya, so it means, oh god, I've got to watch more of her, and the insertion of her into the Ronda Rousey program, while interesting, came to the detriment of the show this week in front of that promo segment backstage. Now this was, unlike the segment I've already mentioned, which was pretty good, a complete dumpster fire, because you had issues aplenty. The mic work of Ronda Rousey is improving, but I feel her timing is off. Speaking of timing that was well off, someone didn't tell Natalya her cue, meaning the camera was lingering on a TV poster curtain shot for longer than it needed to, not to mention Ronda went from stilted, frozen expression like this, to then going, oh my god, Natty! And it was, oh god, it was so cringy. At least they made it up to us by having the action in the ring of Rousey clobbering DeVille and helping Natalya seem very worth it. At least that payoff was good. The build-up to it, though, was so ridiculously over the top and cringy that I just couldn't deal with it, because Natalya's not that great on the mic, and Ronda, while improving, still hasn't got all the idiosyncrasies nailed down. I'm happy this is going to be an eventual feud for her, and it's going to make Ronda look good with the person she's trained with. That's fantastic. The problem I have is just little things regarding the execution and, the mic work. If it ends up being better than I expect, like the WrestleMania match, then colour me speechless and tickle me pink. It's going to be great, but I'm not looking forward to the mic work that these two are going to put out if it ends up being as cringy and over-the-top ridiculous as that. But it's not the worst thing that happened on this show for me, because the worst thing that happened on this show, and it gets a damn strike for its troubles, is the Revival versus Matt and Bray, the Deleter of Worlds, to win themselves a shot at the Raw Tag Team Championships in Jeddah. Now here's the thing, the Revival, music sucks, but in ring they're pretty solid, but the one thing that annoyed me is that this match was so predictable, because they're facing the Bar, aren't they? We need a face team. The Revival weren't going to win. It was a paint by the numbers. And especially considering that is true. Because I was in there watching Raw last week in the flesh. And seeing these two team up was nice. Here's the problem. Matt and Bray already kind of phoned it in and did very similar things this week, meaning it felt like I'd basically watched the exact same match again with different opponents. And that's not a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. I felt it was boring, predictable, and the fact that both of these guys did what WWE does many times with tag teams they've put together without much forethought. They decided to have both men's entrance themes played. It seemed clunky, disjointed, and took you out of the aura that the characters give off. Not to mention the segment with the split curtain right between the light and dark contrasts of their characters was bad too. That just made it worse. So everything to do with the presentation of Matt and Bray was bad. Then the match was just flat. I mean, sure, we had a few other matches that were good, but nothing special, like Ember Moon versus Mickie James, which was better than I was expecting, but I didn't prefer it to the other matches they had, which were not the best things in the world, but still decent. And, of course, the Authors of Pain versus Heath Slater and Rhino. I mean, there were some decent matches this week, but this was the bottom of the barrel. And it just annoyed me, which makes me question, how the hell am I going to be entertained by Bray and Matt going forward if I'm already irritated 2 weeks in? They need to think of something good, otherwise I'm going to be very annoyed. But as you can see, Raw, in the best scope of things, had a lot of good things this week, and I've probably not even mentioned 2/3 of it. But that's what Wrestling Rant is for, to mention the best of the best, the worst of the worst, and basically give an opinion on the show. And, well, I would say Raw was entertaining from top to bottom with swerves and surprises out of legit nowhere. I didn't predict 2/3 of any of the people who were also drafted onto this show this week. So I'm feeling pretty happy. Not to mention the Riot Squad also happened as well with the Sasha Banks-Bayley match, which was great, but the ending pretty much made that effectively, because the match happening on Raw, when it should be a pay-per-view match, making these two hate each other, they're prolonging it so much it wasn't even point mentioning. But Raw this week was very good, so SmackDown had to do a lot to ensure that it came out with the W in the column. Did it? Well, let's check over to the Blue brand and see how they did. I mentioned earlier the question over which brand won the Superstar Shakeup outright. Well, there's no contest. I'm just putting it out there. There is no contest. SmackDown wiped the floor with Raw. Because seriously, whilst Raw got the superstars who they needed to do some work with or weren't getting the reaction they expected and just said, hey, we'll put them on the A show, work with them and see how they're doing, Raw got pillaged because SmackDown received talent that was so burgeoning with quality, it would just make fans delirious. In fact, the only thing that SmackDown's collection of talent was missing was Finn Balor. He's the only person I would have added to SmackDown in order to just say outright, completely over the top, that SmackDown won. They already had done, when you just list off the talent they have here. Samoa Joe, The Bar, Asuka, Gallows and Anderson, Jeff Hardy, who was coming back with the US Championship, which the commentators said was a storyline tactical masterstroke, which is amazing that they had that continuity and depth in mind. They of course have The Miz as well. They have a returning Big Cass, which looked fantastic when he came out on television in both of his appearances, one which we'll get to in a bit. On top of that, you also have NXT call-ups in Cien Almas and Zelina Vega and Sanity, minus Nikki Cross, sadly, but it's still going to be awesome. On top of that, you also have Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose as well for the women's division. I mean, look at that. SmackDown won. SmackDown didn't just win, it brutalized Raw. And okay, I understand that Raw got Chad Gable, Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, Bobby Roode, and of course KO and Sami Zayn as free agents, but the talent on SmackDown right now is just, oh god, it makes my brain explode with the potential matches now that Daniel Bryan and Shinsuke and AJ are there and Samoa Joe and all these guys are there. It's just going to be great. SmackDown has the potential to entertain me for the whole damn year. The Blue brand, of course, is one that I grew up with. I have immense pride in keeping close to my heart, this, ladies and gentlemen, is one way to make SmackDown watchable for the whole 365 days from now until WrestleMania and then some. There is so many good things here. Ugh, so good. The thing is, though, you can tell the difference. You could see when I was mentioning Raws earlier with a little bit of reservation. Here I'm just happy. I'm over the moon. Like I said, all they needed is one Finn Balor just to tie it all together, because there's a lot of heels here. There isn't a lot of baby faces. Something that SmackDown has an issue with generally, so I'm hoping we get to see some depth in the roster with that. Let's hope they can, because the talent is just there. It's gonna be fan-bloody-tastic. SmackDown, Paige, Shane O'Mac, you did amazing. SmackDown is must-watch viewing based on the talent they've acquired alone. I don't have to say any more, do I? Okay, but let's look at the matches, because there were a couple on this show that interested me. Predominantly, Bryan and Styles versus Rusev and English. Now, considering this was just a basic tag match, the crowd were into pretty much everything, waiting for Daniel Bryan to get in, and of course, chanting Rusev Day to their heart's content. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, ruined that, as he does, with another low blow that I'm pretty certain has made AJ Styles infertile by this point, because seriously, those low blows are done with the bicep, not with the fist hand and the forearm. That thing is done with such power, I would be worried. Because of course, if you get hit in the balls hard enough, it could send your pain receptors into overdrive, send a signal to your brain to shut off the heart. That is a bad thing. It can kill you. A punch to the nuts can kill you. So Shinsuke, I know you're the king of strong style, but please, for the love of all that is holy, do not kill AJ Styles. That's all I have to say. On top of that, AJ, I'm hoping you don't want to have any more kids, because I'm pretty certain you haven't got enough space on your ribcage to tattoo anymore, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to have any after those low blows. And as a person who's had an injury to this private area in the past, I can say right now, I mourn the loss of your testicles. Anyway, let's look at the fact that that wasn't the only newsworthy story that came out of it, because of course Daniel Bryan had a confrontation, quote-unquote, with Big Cass, who decided to boot Daniel Bryan in the face afterwards, because he's annoyed going, so you're the person everyone's talking about, like, he was an afterthought and he's jealous that Daniel Bryan's getting all the attention? That's a storyline made for good things. I'm looking forward to this, because that will make Cass easily hateable, because no one can hate Daniel Bryan. That is fantastic. They're sowing the seeds for what's going on in the future. The Miz is of course debuting next week. Whether he goes after Daniel Bryan straight away is another thing entirely, and maybe he gets Big Cass on board as security. Maybe. As the narrative seeds have been sown. And that's all we have to say. Now, we also got Billie Kay of the Iconics versus Charlotte. Now this, compared to the Celebration, which I will get to later, this was a hard-hitting physical contest, as was Liv Morgan versus Charlotte a few weeks back, which I really liked. This was just on that edge, where it just went through and throw, beating each other senseless, with Becky on the outside cheering while Peyton Royce also was on the outside doing the same thing, while Carmella just chilled on commentary looking like she was queen of the bloody world. The match was very fun and it advanced the story forward, as the Iconics ended up decimating Charlotte and Becky afterwards, with Carmella's help of course, with a DQ involved. Now of course, that isn't any newsworthy thing that came out of that, because Asuka made her debut on SmackDown permanently at the end of this contest, fending off the heel team. Well, I would say that, fending off Carmella, because she just ran out and let Peyton Royce and Billie Kay be attacked by all three. So it sets the stone in forward for the newest feuds in the women's division. But here's the thing, I'm hoping that they don't just keep devolving into 6-person tags. They already got pissed off with that enough this year. Please, separate these women off and do something interesting, for God's sake. You haven't got much room on the pay-per-views to do it, so why not give these women a chance on SmackDown to do something more than multi-women tag matches? It was good regardless, so I can't complain. The honourable mentions on this show go to Sin Cara vs Samoa Joe, a great introduction of him, including his promo afterwards. Good lord, again, Samoa Joe is the best bloody promo cutter on the show. His promo on Raw was good, but it felt so reminiscent of last week's, I didn't even bother to mention it, because it was so bland. It was the same as last week's, pretty much, with a few little words twitched and changed. This, however, felt like a man of intent, ready to tear SmackDown a new one, and that was good. The AJ Styles promo at the beginning, showing his anger and disdain towards Shinsuke Nakamura, was very nice. The interruption by Rusev and Aiden English, however, and the near submission in the calf crusher, I didn't like that, but at least the promo was good and it showed AJ has some venom. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, for the love of all that is holy, WWE, stop using the word emotional as a buzzword and instead decide to use your bloody dictionary and utilise an adjective to describe exactly what emotion the wrestler is feeling. Anger, disdain, God, annoyance even, endurance, determination, vigour. There are tons of good and bad emotions you can use. You decide to just use emotional as a broad term because you're too bloody lazy to use a dictionary. I'm going to be so annoyed. Not as annoyed as those bloody text things on the screen, but it's going to hit me as hard if you keep bloody doing it. Because if you say emotional too much, it makes a wrestler sound frail. You can have them be responsive and showcase range, you can do that. Just don't make it so bloody obvious that you're highlighting that because it has negative consequences. It comes through with Nia Jax, just don't have it happen with everybody. It's in the storyline with Nia Jax, it makes sense. AJ Styles, however, you kinda need to stop doing that. It's annoying. Oh boy, and on top of that, the other big honourable mention, Shelton Benjamin's heel turn. I wasn't expecting that, but at least we get him as a viable contender for the US Championship, and the match he had with Jeff Hardy after that was very good indeed. And I can't wait to see what happens with both of these guys going forward, that's to be said. The negatives now. Of course, the Superstar Shakeup couldn't be all positive for SmackDown. The one noticeable negative, R-Truth. Okay, they need a lower mid-card, undercard guy, and they lost Breezango and the Ascensions, so okay. R-Truth is going to be with Ty Dillinger doing stuff. That backstage segment with the New Day was weird, I have to say. It was funny, but weird. Saved by R-Truth's my bad shtick. Which means, is he on SmackDown or not? Lord knows, I mean, the WWE confirmed he is, but that just made it even funnier that he completely forgot he's actually employed there. Weird, right? Now, the negative I have here is one that is very simple. Well, actually, there are a few. There are two I have to pick between here. Harper versus Uso in the match that had Naomi come out and sell the barbarism by wanting Jay to be saved from harm, which is lovely. Or was it Jimmy? I can't remember the Usos' names now. I always forget it anyway. Oh, it was either that or the Bar's introductory promo that will get my first or second taste of ire here. Here's the thing. I hate text on screen in promos. You know that. I also, ladies and gentlemen, hate really crappy movie maker special effects that any YouTuber could put into a video being on WWE's product. Makes it look horrible. So I'm going to go with that. The promo to get the Bar on SmackDown was appalling. I am hoping they don't do that again, because I want to see the Bar do well. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's there and, well, there we go. It's annoying, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing on this show. Oh no. That was the Melibration. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's getting a strike. Now, you may know, if you've watched up until the most recent Friday Flashback Wrestling Rant episode, sorry, I am tired still, the issue I have with the women is sometimes the programs aren't that great, for the most part, but also the mic work isn't that good. In the case of Carmella on her own, outside of calling the belt Cleopatra, she did okay. I just feel from there, however, it just went south, at least in my opinion. I mean, You have Charlotte kind of phoning it in, and her occasionally stilted delivery came through with surprising vigour. But on top of that, you also have the Iconics coming out there and taunting Charlotte like school bullies. I know that's part of their shtick. It kind of worked last week, just not this week with the tone and demeanour that it came with. And the segment just dragged on, and I really didn't like it, folks. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It was the worst thing on this show, alongside that phone promo, which, outside of its intent, would have also gotten a strike as well. But this was just an elongated, drab segment that I just was waiting to end. And thank God we got the really good match coming out of it, because that was worth my time. This, the Melibration itself, no, I could have done without it, thanks. Because it reminds me that while Carmella is decent on the mic and decent in the ring, she has to carry the women's division for a while. Please highlight that you know how to be adaptable, otherwise we're going to have some problems. So with all that in mind, what has SmackDown done? It was not as entertaining as Raw, which is the important thing here. SmackDown won the shake-up. That is obvious. Here's the thing. Raw won this week because the show overall had more in it that was entertaining and kept me going throughout the whole 3 hours. Not to mention this week I stayed up late to watch them live, something I've not done in ages because my sleep pattern is still in the bloody toilet. But here's the thing. I was engaged for all of Raw. SmackDown I switched off periodically in my brain, not on the actual TV, and I felt that it was kind of having to roll on. It was almost afterburn from Raw. It just did a little to keep itself interesting and had enough Superstar Shakeup surprises to spark the interest, but the problem is the matches were overall not as great despite two decent offerings on show alongside the ones we have. Actually, all of the matches had purpose on SmackDown this week, but they all just didn't latch on to my attention. I mean, we already saw Jeff Hardy on Raw already, and I felt that seeing what we saw, I felt Raw did a better job in keeping all the crowd interested and myself. So as you can see on the weekly rankings, after totalising all the ones I've missed, which were all won by SmackDown, coincidentally, and that includes last week's, Raw is winning by 9 weeks to 7. SmackDown really have closed up the gap, but as you can tell, they have a little bit of a problem, but looking at the talent they have on their side, they can do anything. I am looking forward to seeing how SmackDown does, because if Raw puts in a few bad shows, SmackDown, with the talent they have, can sweep up and potentially take the lead. Let's hope, because the first quarter of the year has not been good for the Blue brand, but they've really, in the last month or so, made a name for themselves. So Raw, you won this week by putting on a better show, but the shake-up highlights you in a much weaker place. Going into next week's show, I am hoping we can see a much more even contest between both of you, even though, effectively, they did pretty good this week, both Raw and SmackDown. So where do you think it'll go next week, guys? Will SmackDown wipe the floor with the talent they have? Or will Raw surprise us and give us a show that will be entertaining for the whole 3-hour period? Put your comments down in the comment section, I'll be glad to read them. And if you do not want to miss the Friday flashback due out tomorrow of SummerSlam 2004, alongside the Wrestling Rants going forward, as well as the greatest Royal Rumble in Jeddah review that will be coming, alongside other pay-per-view reviews as well. And of course, if you like Pones and stuff, then of course, click the subscribe button down there. And remember, click the notification bell so you do not miss a single thing. While also following the channel on Twitter and Facebook to ensure that no important updates regarding my schedule and other things are not taken into account. So, with that in mind, Wrestling Rant is back after the WrestleMania period where it lulled and then came back with a bang in New Orleans. Let's hope my schedule doesn't completely confound me anymore, because we're on a Thursday, this is not a Saturday, people. This is where it's going to be from now on. I hope you all appreciate that and are happy to be receiving your wrestling analysis earlier in the week than usual. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching, this has been Wrestling Rant for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.